Hello, this here is Tracilyn. I'm in my apartment. And I wanted to make a video, and I did make a video earlier. The timer is on. Probably took me about an hour, and the assholes that have been harassing me evidently deleted probably about an hour of video that I worked on. So I don't know how well this is going to go. I was trying to be upbeat as I have been being extremely tortured mentally. Somebody plugged into my brain for quite some time and they increased the intensity of it, and it hurts like hell. I never knew that somebody with technology could scream through your mouth. For all the public speakers, thank you for bringing this to my attention. You know, before I ended up living somewhere that I really didn't want to and recording music, I wanted to share the joy, believe it or not, before this assault against me occurred, of a while back I had made a gift for somebody that was special in my life. I don't know if people in the transgendered community are anywhere as serious as what I am, but when I made the steps to transition, I wanted to transition and make things right. Not even necessarily specifically with God, but that would be the hope. You want to make things right with your brain, and when you do that, or as you do it, life becomes a hell of a lot more enjoyable. Unfortunately, this country that supposedly is a supportive country, not so supportive if you get bullied around to the point that you are in your recording studio screaming, or something screaming through you for years on end, and every day it's a constant waking up and stressed out over something so foolish they keep insisting has to do with evidently music. I never heard one recording artist tell me half the things that I ended up learning in doing my project. I made a gift for somebody I thought was transgendered. I don't know if she really is or not, but she sure does appear that way. And back in like 2010, 11, she made an art piece for me. She drew a picture. I finally finished my album called Magical Bride, and I decided to use that artwork. She originally told me that it was a gift for me and that I could use it for like t-shirts, album art, poster, etc., etc. I appreciated it and received it warmly after asking her, "Are you sure you want to give this to me?" Because to me, as I went through life, I would have thought that that's a pretty nice piece of artwork to offer somebody. I ended up making Magical Bride, the album art, and I turned it into a promo CD, 2023. I went out and I got a picture frame and some of the things that meant something to me and made a nice little picture frame gift with wrapping of a dress that I wore and shoestrings that to a pair of shoes that meant something to me. Other articles of like things I got at food pantry and on one of my favorite black purses. I'll show you that soon. What I wanted to show you is the album art that I put in the picture frame. Hopefully you can see it. The lighting is kind of dim in here as they have been driving me psychopathic. I had everything all set up, and then I did the video, and then when I was finally done and ready to move on to doing something else, then I realized the first 2-3 videos were deleted. Evidently, yes, it is true, they are on my technology, and they hate when I start bringing up things from what inspired me, whether it would be national recording artists, guitar players, or other people. They try to keep my tongue away from sharing my life story the way that it occurred. Evidently, I guess they like to try to take recording artists and make them appear like a freak, etc. This was an album art sleeve, the front cover. The back cover is of a poem that I wrote in 2010 with a picture of me at my friend Michael's down in Biltmore, downtown Dayton. and it was a precious time in my life. And I used to go and think and pretend. And my album art, which I might have showed before, it has pictures of me from the Huber Heights residence, as well as when I used to escort. Isn't it neat? I think it turned out really nice. The one with me on the car, which I can't really point at this time, that was when I first came out, and that is the dress that I wore to Manhattan, New York, my very first time. I still have the dress. I was hoping to use it for something special, but it's very hard to be intimate with yourself while being mentally tortured. When I tried to give it to her, she did not want the gift. And then it kind of ended up in an unfortunate argument, conversation, that she wanted me out of her presence. She would not take the gift. I ended up leaving. I was bizarred out because as I became a hell of a lot more intimate and passionate and warm, human, I realized that a lot of crazy stuff has been happening since I took steps in my transitional existence to try to make things right with myself, therefore the world around me. I figured I'd hold on to the picture frame that I made, and if she would ever call me, because I told her if she ever called me and changed her mind, that I would love to give it still to her. Until I was done here in the studio with my project, I made up my mind, instead of throwing it away or holding on to it. They're drying my mouth out right now, so it sounds hoarse. They're plugged into my skull. I decided I would use it for something of my own album art. I wanted to do something special, and one of the things that I ended up doing was taking a few of my songs and turning them into instrumental pieces. I had mentioned in my other video that I was truly inspired by Joe Satriani's Surfing with the Alien when I was a teenager. And because of already, by the time I'm in high school, the difficulties of connecting with other people musically that were serious, it ended up with a lot of, at the time, heartaches in the fact that that's not going anywhere except for it seems like something is playing mental games with me, and I'm pretty much getting fatigued from that. And because of the way I felt as a musician, etc., a lot of the what would be perceived as better even local bands were kind of sort of out of my league, and their beliefs were not the same beliefs as what I had, which I don't want to really get into the details of that right now. So I ended up doing my musical endeavors alone and spending a lot of time in my bedroom studying music and practicing. So I was a bedroom player. And with that being said, that album inspired me greatly. Always With You, Always With Me was my favorite song by Joe Satriani. I also loved Satch Boogie. That was the first one I saw on TV in a video, and I had to have the album because I really liked the groove to that song, and I wanted to learn more about that approach by a guitar player who makes an entire album. I don't know who else did it prior to that. My interest was where my interest was. A lot of it was out of boredom of life that I listened and resorted to listening to music. And as a guitar player, especially when you get into sounds, when I started playing electric guitar, I didn't like what was typical or common even when talking with other guitar players. And when I ended up hearing that, I started thinking maybe I could start doing some studio projects. I didn't know where to begin because I wasn't raised around it. We did not have computer technology that I knew of then. So I didn't even know where to begin. I used to talk to my brother about it, and one of my hopes was that I would be able to at least do one album in this lifetime, which I did way more than that. And one of those things was I was hoping to do at least one fast and one slow song of an instrumental song because of the inspiration and how it touched me. I don't know how well things like that do in the world, but I know in my own personal life, it didn't seem like too much of an interest to other people as much as it was to me and for me. So I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as in a gospel truth. So with that being said, I wasn't necessarily seeking to do things specifically for people. However, one of the greater joys in my life and being raised with a worship leading family is, especially if you've been around depression throughout the human race, it makes it hard for somebody like me not to approach somebody who might be sad and want to at least lift their spirits a little bit. I went through the earlier years of my life dealing with myself, my mother, other people that I was close to or met, and I understood very clearly that a lot of people have challenging time that they deal with. And one of the things that I had to offer was having a good ear, listening to people, and trying to say something that I would hope would get them to smile, and maybe in situations where they're crying, to stop crying. So I had myself, my personality developed a lot from that. In other words, I was born a very sensitive, very soft spirit, though my mom might disagree and say I was quite a smart ass. I think we all have our seasons of times like that, but overall I was a really nice person, and confused and lost. And I didn't know how to deal with anything except for frickin' beer and, alcoholism and smoking pot. And how do you connect with the human race? I mean, you like body parts or whatever. I mean, I already realized not too long into it that I already started to do no-nos within the human race that were against my own personal beliefs, because I really truly didn't know how do you connect with other human beings, and I didn't really understand anything about true fulfillment, and how does one even approach that if it's not even a thought, because you don't really know. I didn't really know, so you're looking for somehow to become satisfied, and it seems like time with friends, time listening to music, time riding bike, always seemed to be a little bit rewarding while it was happening, but when it wasn't happening, that's when the sadness consumed me. I was not aware at the time of the technology that is being used on me that is very challenging to deal with when they plug into your brain. So thank you, fellow Americans, for informing me of that, because it makes a huge difference once your brain becomes aware that an assault is being against humans on a regular basis by something or a group of people that do have that kind of technology. If a human can be a robot when somebody penetrates technology into your brain, and they can literally speak through your mouth by clenching onto your brain, I think that should be within the human conversation at some point, whether in a church community of people or within the local neighborhood. Other people should as well, you would think, be catching on to this, which would explain a lot of difficulties in the human race as they're trying to go about their life and something is continuously interfering. I waited for a season of time. I decided to make my album art out of a video that I used for She Stands for Freedom. I was on a country road and it was gorgeous. I took a smartphone I had and I put it on the front of my windshield, and carefully I drove down the road to capture the scenery and in driving mode, because I do not have a GoPro or a car type camera that you can put on, so I used my smartphone. And I love the scenery. I ended up taking a snippet type thing, and I decided I was going to use it for the instrumental with words album, which is what I'm hoping to play a little bit later. I don't know if I have it on video or not. I have one video that I was hoping to not talk about a lot of the stuff I have been talking about, but what ended up happening was the stress and frustration. I approached this very upbeat and happy at first, and then that happened, and they've been really stressing me out. She never contacted me, so I figured that she was really serious about not wanting to talk to me anymore, which, if I wasn't careful, would break my heart, because it doesn't make sense to me why I would receive, being booted out of people's lives when I'm trying to be kind and generous and offer them closer into my life. And one of the things that I have realized all of my life, ever since I was at least 7 or 8 years old, is having the opportunity to have the means to be able to, whether in this situation, make something by hand, which took a lot of psychology for me to even get to that point, because I had a lot of struggles with, I didn't feel that I was good at anything. arts and craft, what would be the simplest of things for people to make. I used to make the triangle cars and take a 50-cent piece or a silver dollar and I would trace them to make little wheels on them, and that's how I drew a car. I picked it up somewhere and I tried to have a sense of humor about it, but there were people that would sit right down beside me and my family and they would draw really neat cars. Very realistic too. Cartoon characters and stuff, and even tracing, I was not really that good, and that I tried to have still a sense of humor and still do things so I could be a part of everything. And I was good with the imagination. I was good with pretending. I was good with playing with my matchboxes or pretending I'm driving a car outside. Do you understand? I was good as kind of like a cheerleader where people were playing football or something. I didn't want to get hurt because I got hurt pretty easy back then. I was not like the other kids, and it was hard for me to like even tackle somebody because I didn't want to hurt them. If I did tackle them, I wanted to lay them down easily, and I would always say, I'm sorry if I hurt you. So I tried to stay away from stuff like that because I realized for me, it's just not my personality. So, with that being said, what am I good at? I'm good at riding bike, I'm good at pretending, and I'm good at listening to people. But when it comes to singing and doing music and stuff, I already realize that I'm around talent, but it doesn't seem like I have very much, and maybe it'll take time to develop, and I'll figure things out as I go. And I did psychology. Once I started getting more into psychology, I started realizing a lot of things, you know. With that being said, about a year or so later, I didn't make an album art, I made like a clip art of the picture and I put my name with the album title. And then what I did is I took that album art out of the frame and I put this in and I decided to use it. It's too nice of a picture frame not to use. I got it over at, I think it was Michael's, the retail store, the arts and crafty kind of store. And that was inspired a little bit by have seen it as I went through life traveling and stuff. I was not huge into arts and crafts, but then I started, since I'm working on my music and stuff and getting into photography and modeling and the way the brain works, I started getting more into details, and I want to try some things sometimes that I felt like I was not that good at, because now I have all the different psychology of what I learned while recording music, plus we have YouTube videos, which I did not have in the 70s and 80s. You know, there's somebody who took time, and I'm always grateful when they do. They show people, and I realized at some point when I was in Huber Heights with one of the gentlemen that lived in the house for a while, that if I sit down with somebody and they talk to me, not ignorant, but as though they're talking to a child, and they show me, I can pick things up. But I can't pick things up if people are insensitive, and depending on what is said will deter me. Even if I hold it in and I kind of walk away, it's a little bit more difficult for me to learn a lot of times the way other people do, and sometimes I have to watch several times. So the videos with people sharing means a lot to me, because there's times whether I'm working on my car, working in the studio, working on arts and crafts, dressing, I will watch a video sometimes 3, 4, 5 times, and right before I get ready to engage, because I'll make like a list of things that I think I need to keep in mind or to purchase, I will watch it again. And then I keep in mind to kind of do things with that as kind of like a structure, but still kind of personalize it, doing a little something different for me. So it has helped me out with meals, which I get really tired of eating the exact same things as I go through life. So when it came to juicing, I learned a lot at Huber Heights. That's what got me started, but then I started watching videos, and that has helped me tremendously. So thank you to anybody who takes time to do that. Somewhere in the world, I'm sure there's quite a few people that with that, it is very beneficial for them doing something they would like to do. And this way you don't have to bug certain people. You can click it on 24 hours, 7 days a week. You can watch it when you're in bed. You can watch it at the desk. If you're out and about and you're confused, you can type something in. You can find that information. What I've realized is relationship with information is a lot different than the approach of the way that I used to kind of go about life, still seeking out information, but approaching different people to talk to them about it. Which, to be honest with you, once that kind of got more disconnected, I went through my emotional distraught over it. I don't know what happened in this world, but it seems like there's a disconnect with people, at least in my life, and it becomes more of a realization of dependency on information. When you have the knowledge, you can actually serve something that's rewarding versus confused and not knowing what to do. You're better off in a lot of situations, me, not necessarily you, but to just surrender and give that part up because it's not working out. Where if you have something like an instructional video, you can watch it. If it's not working out, you can re-watch it, watch a couple other ones, and then you'll catch on. And so far, I say this humbly, it seems like things come about. I'm a lot happier today with things that I do than I ever was before. And I am relieved. And that took me over a decade of studying psychology, 13, 15 years of listening to public speakers. That came from being self-employed for over 7 years and being an adult entertainer for almost 6. And with all of that, you learn a lot of different things. And how it all applies later on, somehow it does. Whether it's development of your personality, the way you walk, your mannerisms, a lot of different things. It was hard for me to make the decision, but I didn't want it to just sit. I didn't want to throw it away. So I had it in my filing cabinet, and the day came. I figured I will use it for one of my own clip arts because I like the picture frame. So, here it is. Instead of having the Magical Bride album art, I put instrumental with words, with beautiful country scenery. And this little black type tassel, is that what it's called, was on one of my purses. And this beautiful feather was on a dream catcher that I got at a food pantry during the times, I don't know if it was during the tornado season that we had here, or if it was some kind of storm or something, but at some point I ended up going to a food pantry, and then I saw that they were giving away gifts, and that's where I got it. I'm not too much into dreams anymore, as I am serving my brain, the Word of God, and what I perceive as a higher intelligence. When I was lost, confused, lonely, and without, my brain was being used to dream of what life could be. If I could, that's what it would be like. Not real. It seems close. Obviously, it's in your brain. Not happening the same way, even when imitating. But when I started doing the things that I really wanted to in the studio, it's like your head lights up like a flashlight inside your brain, and it's like something shows you not what could be. That's what you're serving, which is superior than anything I've ever seen here on this earth. Gorgeous. And in that, there is no competition. There is no he's better, she's better, it's understood. You wouldn't serve anything less than the greatest. So, I hung it here on my studio wall. I got a Christmas thing over here. I love Christmas music a lot. I was hoping someday that if I were to be doing musical endeavors, that I would have at least one Christmas song, because Christmas music has touched my life always. And I especially love the classics a lot, and I like the classic versions a lot. And I believe a lot of the gems are there because of a lot of the psych that I have and the connectivity of what the Christmas music meant to me as I went through life, and what it does for me any time of the year when I push play and I listen to any one of the songs. Instrumental. I did it. I was originally hoping that they would be unique songs. It took me until I was in my 20s before I finally did one slow and one fast, but I didn't think at the time they were really that good. I realized that if they got recorded, and then, overdubbing and recording on top of it, it would probably turn out pretty good. And Satch Boogie and Always With You, Always With Me was the inspiration for those songs. I don't really remember a whole lot off the top of my head right now, but last I knew, the recordings were made, and they're in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, in Lebanon County. I don't know if they still exist, but they never did record them. And a lot of it was because of where I was mentally and the fact that things take time. And at the time, I didn't have my own studio, and I didn't have my own recording gear, so, my brother was a huge helping hand in that. And I recorded stuff with his equipment and used his equipment to make recordings. And I just figured, with life, what is the use of sticking with music when it seems like you have a hard enough time just being able to have some kind of real home versus I have a place to stay. And I was one of those people, I had a place to stay, but I didn't have my mental of real, friendly, loving home environment. So I made do the best that I could with wherever I was, and I figured that music could be put off on the wayside. Not that important to me. I love music, but it's not that important. It's more of a torture, it's more of a torment than it is rewarding and satisfying. It seems like there's always challenges that nobody wants when doing that. And I didn't understand whether or not if it's that kind of difficulties with other people or if it's just me. But it seems like if your brain is wanting you to do music, that it would better assist you in doing those endeavors instead of feeling like you constantly get left stranded in a swamp of started to work on something and then something came up. Which makes more sense with technology and corporations and things using people, makes more sense. Especially if they can tap into your head, see through your eyes, hear through your ears, talk through your mouth. Especially if they can go on your computer, on your smartphone, etc., taking your videos, deleting them, etc. And if you start seeing your song titles, you start hearing of things of your ideas, inspiration, etc., popping up in other national recording artists and stuff like that, it would assume to me that somehow our brains are all joined together and somehow that stuff is funneling through other human beings at the exact same time, or corporate people are taking stuff from people's hard drives and then going ahead and using what they feel is not the copyright infringement type situation, and they use those ideas. And according to people I talked to associated with Toby Keith, etc., had told me that's exactly what happens. So if anybody's a recording artist, period, they probably are fully aware of things that I only came to really witness and understand that it happens. Thank you, everybody in the recording arts, for informing the viewer. Which would explain my pain and agony of why I perceive the torture of hearing the same songs as you go through life, always on the radio and TV, annoying you with the thought of the consumption of music has tapped, and you find most music absolutely mundane and boring. It's a lot of the same subject matters being repeated over and over again, So, with that being said, thank you, the Word of God, for tapping me out of it and getting me more into an imagination and getting my inspiration somewhere else rather than bleeding off of other people, so to speak, specifically, solely. Inspired is one thing, but I'm not into the copy and paste kind of situation. I try not to. So, what I wanted to do is share my album art, that's it. Hopefully this video turned out. I hear that I'm really hoarse right now. They dry me out when they plug into my brain for some reason. It's a really discomfort on the left side of the brain. It affects through the whole body. You can feel the electricity kind of like type situation going through your body, which tires you out, okay? I wanted to play some of the songs. I did play them earlier. I don't know if I have a video of it. I'm going to stop this and see if it works. I wouldn't say that it feels like somebody's doing something through me, but it sure as hell does feel like somebody is harassing the crap out of me. And it can be quite painful. And because I have been told throughout life, and I agree, I have a very high pain tolerance. This is why when I was in the BDSM scene and I was a submissive, I could tolerate more than what the typical could of people that I came across. I realize that as I go through life, the average person does not know the pain I'm going through mentally and physically when we cross paths. And even if they did, what would they do? Would they track down the alien that's plugged into my brain? Or the group of people? Would they give me a physical address? So there we go. A much longer video. I am going to see if this has worked. I have a couple more things to show, and then onward to another video that I wanted to make. I'll probably have to make it on the other camera, and then finally, I'll probably get ready for bed. So, Tracilyn, Instrumental with Words. For anybody that comes across this video, and you heard it this far, the personality, do not judge. If you're mindful, be aware that you would listen more to the words, because I'm a very upbeat and friendly personality that is continuously, right now, in pain, being tortured. And it's one of those things that I met enough people in my life to understand that they have evidently dealt with similar things, and they do not talk about it, where I do talk about it. So evidently, when they plug into a brain, they don't let a person go, for whatever reason. But they do tease you what it would be like if they did leave you alone, which is more like a real human being. The gift of giving can be kind of difficult since coming to Ohio, which is bizarre to me. I met some kind and friendly people, and then I encountered some bizarre stuff that I never really encountered, but I seen an increasement of it. And considering what I believe is it's kind of like a military psychological warfare kind of mentality, where they enter into whoever they want to, whenever they want to, or they're already there. And therefore, when you're talking to a person, you don't really know who you're talking to. All you can do is mentally try to be in tune with the fact that it could be the person, or especially if it seems like a common trait of a personality that in my situation is like a smartass, then there's a good chance it's whatever smartass is assigned to my head. And that would be them talking through other people, because we learn that something else can talk through human beings, which is bizarre to me when you see puppets. Okay. And then you hear Alex Jones, and he's talking about puppets at times, within the government. So, as my producer from back in the day, Andrew C. Strauss, had said, you have to ask yourself, what are you serving? What is the difference between people on the radio and people would be the common everyday life circumstances and occupation that still do music or can do music or what have you, record, don't record, play? And is somebody not actively playing any less of a human being than somebody who is actively playing? Well, this is the things that whatever's assigned to our brain tries to make people think. And you go about life, and it's always like this intimidation kind of thing, psychologically, that kind of is irritating, especially if you're somebody that really wanted to do things wholeheartedly, and in the spirit of life, it kind of seems like whatever it is that's assigned to your head wants you to go to war in some way, and it wants to show you. Things like the weather is bullshit. I cried my eyes out when I was living with Catherine because, in summary, I came to the conclusion, especially being poor and in my circumstances, if I could live somewhere in a nicer climate, I could at least go for walks or ride bike, do outdoorsy things that I enjoy. It would increase the opportunity of meeting other people that are already doing things that I enjoy. So at least I have that. And understanding that all of a sudden I came into very dreary weather, cloudy, snow, which I love snow, but I noticed an increase of this. Where are the nice days at? And when you listen to Joyce Myers about God has you where God wants you, you have to think and analyze to figure out, is it God or is it evildoers? Because the same assholes that make it rain for days on end can also make it beautiful anytime they want to. The question is, does the entire environment have to pay them for nice weather? Do we have to pay them for rain? Are we at the mercy of something else? Because it seems to me that a loving God would know when it's a necessity to have the water and to have the light and the blessing of snow and what it has to offer. I don't know necessarily if God would need to fire up a tornado that people claim is unpredictable when something shows you it happens when they do it. The hurricane, it's a coming. It's something that really loves, evidently, what we would call tragedy. It's interesting. Nobody ever told me about that. But if there's just God, according to what some lady had said on TV, then I guess that's God. But I think a person of life would disagree and say, I don't think it's God. I think it's God keeping me safe. I think it's God providing for me. I think it's God keeping me at peace during the storm. But I don't know if that's God that's tormenting me continuously over things that I have been being tormented over. For instance, I have not listened to Joyce Myers for how many years. I shouldn't even be saying her name today. Unless I was in a friendly conversation, I was talking about this that happened to me or something. They constantly keep bringing it up. It's almost like I'm forced to talk about people I don't want to talk about. In other words, I want to use my tongue, the router in life, for something worthy of using it for. And in my opinion, a lot of the people and the approach that people do, they might be all right with it, but for me, I was not raised to be using my tongue in the manner that they force it. They just do things right through me. While I'm trying to focus on life, they try to have me focus on the opposite. I did the best I could. Let's move on to some other things really quick. I want to show you, I got to check my videos and make sure that they're working.